Have you ever been losing your mind over your laptop freezing, called tech support, and the first thing they say is, have you tried turning it off and on again? And you're sitting there thinking, that's it? That's your professional advice? Just restart it? But here's the thing that might shock you. That annoyingly simple advice actually works about 90% of the time. And there's a reason IT professionals guard this little secret like it's some kind of sacred knowledge. In the next 15 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why your computer basically heals itself when you restart it. And once you know this, you'll never look at that spinning loading wheel the same way again. Think about this for a second. You've got a $1,000 MacBook or a gaming PC that cost you $2,000. All this advanced technology, yet the solution to most problems is the digital equivalent of taking a nap. Doesn't that seem weird? It's like if your car started making a weird noise and the mechanic said, just park it for 5 minutes and it'll be fine. You'd think they were messing with you, right? But with computers, this actually works, and nobody ever explains why. Here's what's really happening, and this matters because every single day, people are losing hours of their lives staring at frozen screens. They're cursing at their computers. They're losing unsaved work. They're missing deadlines. All because they don't understand one simple thing about how their machine actually works. It's not just about fixing bugs. It's about understanding why your computer is more like your brain than you ever realized. Picture this scenario. You're in the middle of a huge project. Maybe you're editing photos for your friend's wedding. Or you're 3 hours deep into a Netflix binge. Or you're about to submit that report that's due in 20 minutes and your computer just stops. The cursor freezes, nothing clicks. That little rainbow wheel on Mac or spinning circle on Windows just mocks you. Your heart rate spikes, you start clicking everything frantically, nothing works. You know you should restart. But you've got stuff open. You're scared you'll lose everything. So you wait, and your computer stays frozen like a deer in headlights. Everyone tells you to restart more often. Close your programs. Don't keep so many tabs open. But that's not what actually happens when things go wrong. What really happens is something invisible, something building up in the background while you're just trying to watch YouTube or finish your work. Your computer isn't being dramatic. It's literally drowning in its own processes. And here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. Every single computer, even that brand new one you just bought, is constantly creating digital garbage. From the moment you turn it on until the moment you shut it down, it's accumulating invisible junk. And this matters because it's not about how careful you are. It's not about having good computer habits. It's about how computers fundamentally work at the hardware level. Now, to understand why restarting fixes everything, you need to know about your computer's short-term memory. And I'm not talking about your hard drive where you store photos and documents. I'm talking about RAM. Random access memory. Think of RAM like your brain's working memory. When you're trying to remember a phone number someone just told you, you're holding it in your working memory. You haven't written it down yet. It's just floating in your consciousness. The moment you get distracted, poof, it's gone. RAM works exactly the same way. When you open Chrome, your computer loads that program into RAM. When you open Spotify, into RAM. That Excel spreadsheet, RAM. That game you're playing, RAM. Everything you're actively using right now lives in RAM because RAM is insanely fast. Your hard drive or SSD is like your long-term memory, your stored knowledge. But RAM is your active thinking space. And here's the critical part that changes everything. RAM only works when it has power. Cut the power and everything in RAM vanishes instantly, gone, erased, like it never existed. Your hard drive keeps data even when the power's off. That's why your photos are still there when you turn your computer back on. But RAM is temporary by design. It's supposed to be wiped clean. And this is actually the secret sauce that makes restarting work. Because when you restart your computer, you're not just turning it off and on. You're forcing a complete memory wipe. Everything that was cluttering up your RAM gets flushed away. Every program, every process, every bit of data that was taking up space, deleted. So here's what I call the accumulation effect. And once you see this pattern, you'll understand why your computer gets slower the longer you leave it on. When you first boot up your computer in the morning, it's fresh. RAM is empty. Clean slate. You open a program, it loads into RAM. Perfect. You close that program, and theoretically, it should clear out of RAM completely. But here's what nobody talks about. Programs don't always clean up after themselves. Imagine you're cooking in your kitchen. You make breakfast. You're supposed to wash the pan and put it away. But sometimes you're in a rush. You leave it in the sink, I'll get it later. Then you make lunch, another pan in the sink, then dinner, more dishes piling up. Before you know it, your entire kitchen is full of dirty dishes and you can't find a clean pan to cook with. That's exactly what happens in RAM. Programs are supposed to release the memory they were using when you close them, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they leave behind little chunks of data, processes that didn't shut down properly, bits of code still running in the background. This matters because your computer has a fixed amount of RAM. Let's say you've got 8 gigabytes. That's your kitchen counter space. When you first start up, you've got all 8 gigabytes available, fresh and ready. But after you've been using your computer for hours, maybe days, without restarting, you might only have 2 gigabytes actually available. The other 6 gigabytes is cluttered with digital dishes nobody washed. Your computer is trying to work in a kitchen where every surface is covered with dirty pans. And that's exactly what happens to most people. They never restart. They just close their laptop and put it to sleep. Day after day, week after week. Think about Jake. Jake's a graphic designer. He's got a beefy computer with 16 gigabytes of RAM. He works on Photoshop, Illustrator, has Chrome open with like 47 tabs because he's researching. He never fully shuts down his computer, just closes the lid every night, wakes it up every morning. After about a week, Jake's computer starts acting weird. Photoshop is laggy, files take forever to save, his cursor stutters. He's got this expensive machine and it's performing like a potato. But here's what Jake doesn't realize. Of his 16 gigabytes of RAM, only about 3 gigabytes is actually available for new tasks. The rest is filled with zombie processes, programs he closed 3 days ago that are still hanging around in memory, browser tabs that crashed but never fully released their memory, background services that multiplied like rabbits. Now compare that to Marcus. Marcus has the exact same setup. Same computer, same RAM, same programs. But Marcus understands something Jake doesn't. Every couple of days, Marcus fully restarts his computer. Not sleep mode, not hibernate, full shutdown and restart. And here's what happens. When Marcus boots back up, his computer runs like new. All 16 gigabytes of RAM are available again. Every process starts fresh. No zombie programs cluttering things up. Notice how Marcus doesn't have a better computer. He just understands the accumulation effect. He knows that digital junk piles up invisibly. And the only way to truly clear it is to cut the power and flush RAM completely. But there's something even more important happening during a restart. Something that goes beyond just clearing RAM. There's this pattern I call the system reset cascade. And this is where things get really interesting. Because your computer isn't just one thing. It's a collection of different systems all trying to work together. You've got your operating system, Windows or Mac OS. You've got drivers for your keyboard, your mouse, your graphics card, your Wi-Fi. You've got background services handling everything from security updates to printer connections. And all of these systems are constantly talking to each other, sending signals back and forth. Think of it like a massive group chat, except it's not 10 people, it's hundreds of processes all trying to coordinate. And just like a group chat, sometimes wires get crossed. Someone sends a message that doesn't make sense. Someone else is waiting for a response that never comes. The conversation gets out of sync. Except instead of just being annoying, when your computer's internal group chat gets out of sync, things break. Your Wi-Fi stops connecting, your mouse starts lagging, programs freeze. And here's what makes this even more surprising. The longer your computer runs without restarting, the more likely these communication errors become. Here's a real example. Your graphics driver is rendering video on YouTube. It's sending constant updates to your operating system about what's being displayed. Meanwhile, your browser is also communicating with the OS about the same video, and your Wi-Fi driver is streaming data, and your audio driver is processing sound. All of these different systems coordinating in real time. But what happens when one of them glitches? Maybe your graphics driver sends a corrupt signal. The OS gets confused. It's waiting for the right data, but keeps getting garbage. So it waits and waits. That's when you see the freeze. Your brain does this too. Ever walk into a room and completely forget why you went there? Your brain's working memory got confused. The signal about your intention got dropped somewhere between the living room and the kitchen. But you can't just restart your brain. You have to retrace your steps. With computers, you actually can restart. You can force all those systems to stop talking, clear out all the confused signals, and start fresh with clean communication channels. That's the system reset cascade. When you restart, every driver reloads, every service reinitializes, every process starts from a known good state. And there's another thing that happens that most people never think about. When your computer first boots up, it runs through a checklist. It's making sure every piece of hardware is working correctly. Testing connections, verifying that drivers are properly loaded. It's basically running a full system diagnostic every time. But when your computer's been running for weeks without a restart, it never gets to run that diagnostic again. So if something went slightly wrong 3 days ago, your computer has just been limping along ever since, trying to work around the problem instead of fixing it. This is what the research actually shows. Microsoft's own data indicates that computers running Windows perform significantly better when restarted at least once a week. Apple doesn't publish the data, but macOS has the same patterns. The operating system is designed with the assumption that you'll restart periodically. Updates get fully installed during restart, system caches get cleared, temporary files get deleted, but if you never restart, all of that maintenance never happens. Here's what nobody wants to admit. The reason turn it off and on again works isn't because computers are poorly designed. It's because they're incredibly complex machines trying to coordinate thousands of simultaneous processes. And just like your brain needs sleep to consolidate memories and clear out waste, your computer needs restarts to flush RAM and reset its systems. This isn't a bug in the design. It's a feature, a necessary reset mechanism built into the fundamental architecture. Let me blow your mind for a second. There are actual physical reasons why RAM loses data when power is cut. RAM is made of millions of tiny capacitors. Think of a capacitor like a microscopic bucket that holds an electrical charge. When that bucket is full, that's a 1-inch binary. When it's empty, that's a 0. All your data in RAM is just patterns of full and empty buckets, millions of them. But here's the thing about these buckets. They leak. Even when your computer is running, these capacitors are constantly losing their charge. Your RAM has to constantly refresh them, refilling the buckets thousands of times per second just to maintain the data. Cut the power, and those buckets drain instantly. Within milliseconds, every capacitor in your RAM is empty. Every one becomes a 0. Every piece of data evaporates. This isn't like erasing a whiteboard where you might see some ghost traces of what was there. This is complete obliteration. And that's exactly why it's so effective at fixing problems. You can't have corrupted data lingering in RAM after a restart because there's literally no data in RAM after you cut power. It's physically impossible. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. This also means that anything you didn't save is gone forever. That document you were working on, if you didn't hit save and you restart, it's gone. Not hidden somewhere, not recoverable with some special tool, erased at the molecular level. This is why modern operating systems bug you so much about saving your work. They know that one restart will wipe everything in active memory, and this connects to something even deeper about how we use technology. We expect our computers to remember everything, to never lose anything. But RAM is designed to forget. It's temporary by nature. Think about Sarah. Sarah's been working on her laptop for about 8 hours straight. She's got Word open with a document, Excel with 3 spreadsheets, Chrome with 30 tabs of research. Her computer starts getting slow, really slow. She's frustrated, she knows she should restart, but she's scared. She hasn't saved that Word document in like an hour, and she can't remember which of those Excel sheets she's already saved. so she suffers through the slowness. She clicks and waits, getting more and more frustrated. Her 2-hour project turns into 4 hours because her computer is crawling. Here's what Sarah doesn't realize. Her computer is using maybe 90% of her RAM. It's constantly swapping data in and out, struggling to find space for new tasks. Every click takes longer because there's no free memory to process it quickly. Now, think about Alex. Alex is in the exact same situation. Computer getting slow, lots of work open. But Alex has a different approach. Alex takes 30 seconds and saves everything, every document, every spreadsheet. Then Alex restarts. 2 minutes later, Alex's computer is back up. RAM is flushed clean. All programs start fresh. Alex reopens the work, and boom, everything is fast again. The rest of Alex's work takes half the time because the computer is actually responsive. Same work, same computer. But Alex understood something Sarah didn't. The temporary inconvenience of saving and restarting is way smaller than hours of fighting with a sluggish machine. And notice what Alex didn't do. Alex didn't have some special technical knowledge, didn't run optimization software, didn't upgrade RAM. Alex just understood the pattern. Digital junk accumulates, RAM gets cluttered, restarting flushes it clean. That's it. That's the whole secret. IT professionals have been gatekeeping. It's not about being tech savvy. It's about understanding one simple principle. Your computer's short-term memory needs to be wiped periodically, just like how your kitchen needs to be cleaned, even if you're a good cook. Here's what most people don't realize. Every single program you run creates what's called a memory footprint. Even after you close the program, sometimes part of that footprint remains. Little bits of code still loaded in RAM. Background processes still running. It's like when you leave the house but forget to turn off a light. The light's still burning electricity even though nobody's in the room. These zombie processes are still consuming RAM even though you're not using them anymore. And here's what makes this particularly sneaky. You can't see them. They don't show up in your taskbar. They're invisible to normal users. Running in the background, taking up space. Your operating system tries to manage this. It has built-in garbage collection that's supposed to clean up these zombie processes. But it's not perfect. Sometimes processes get stuck in weird states where the OS can't kill them. Sometimes programs crash in ways that leave orphaned processes behind. And over time, these accumulate. Your available RAM shrinks day by day until you're running on fumes. This isn't about bad programming. It's about the complexity of modern software. You've got programs written by thousands of different companies, all running on the same machine. Sometimes they conflict. Sometimes they don't play nice together. And the only universal reset button that works every time is cutting power and flushing RAM. This might blow your mind, but think about your phone. When was the last time you fully turned off your iPhone or Android? Most people never do. They just let it sleep. And then they wonder why their phone gets slow after a few months. Same exact issue. Smartphones use RAM too, same accumulation patterns, same zombie processes. Apple and Google have tried to build better automatic cleanup systems for phones. They're more aggressive about killing background processes. But even they can't catch everything. That's why both iOS and Android perform better after a restart. It's not placebo, it's physics. Clearing the capacitors and starting fresh. So, what's really going on here? It's not actually about bugs at all. That's the surface level understanding. The deeper truth is this. Computers are managing incredible complexity with finite resources. Your RAM is your computer's workspace. When that workspace gets cluttered with abandoned processes, corrupted data, and confused system signals, everything slows down. Everything breaks. But RAM has a superpower. It's designed to be completely erased when power is removed. And that design choice, which seems like a limitation, is actually the solution. It's the reset button that brings your computer back to a clean state. The people who understand technology don't have magic computers that never slow down. They just understand this pattern. They know that digital entropy is real. Disorder increases over time unless you intervene. And the intervention is simple. Restart, flush RAM, reset system processes, start clean. It's not sexy, it's not complicated, but it works. because it's working with how computers actually function at the hardware level, not fighting against it. And here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody in tech wants to say out loud. We could probably design systems that don't need restarts as often. We could build better cleanup systems, more aggressive memory management. But there's always going to be a trade-off. More aggressive cleanup means more processing power spent on maintenance, which means slower performance while you're working. It's cheaper and more efficient to just let things accumulate and have users restart occasionally. That's the deal we've all implicitly accepted, convenience during use in exchange for periodic resets. Think about everything we just explored. You've got RAM that's physically designed to forget everything when power is cut. You've got programs that leave behind zombie processes. You've got system drivers that can get out of sync with each other. And you've got an operating system trying to coordinate all of this complexity with limited resources. All of these patterns connect to one central insight. Your computer isn't a static machine. It's a dynamic system constantly changing state. And without periodic resets, that system drifts further and further from optimal performance. The question isn't whether your computer will eventually get slow and buggy. It will. That's guaranteed. The question is whether you'll recognize the pattern when it shows up, because now you know. It's not your fault. It's not bad luck. It's not a virus or malware making things slow. It's just the accumulation effect. Digital junk piling up in RAM, system processes getting out of sync. And the solution isn't complicated. Cut the power, flush the RAM, reset the systems, start fresh. You can't unknow this now. Next time your computer starts acting weird, you'll know exactly what's happening. You'll see that sluggish performance for what it really is. A cluttered workspace that needs cleaning. And you'll know the fastest, most effective way to fix it. Not because some IT person told you their secret trick, but because you understand how RAM actually works. How computers manage memory. Why temporary data needs to be periodically erased. So next time you're in that moment, staring at a frozen screen, you won't panic. You won't waste hours trying to force things to work. You'll save your work, hit restart, and 2 minutes later, you'll be back to a computer that runs like new. Because you've just given it what it needed all along. A chance to forget, a chance to flush out all that accumulated junk, a chance to start fresh with clean RAM and reset systems. That's the real secret. And now, it's yours.